Good morning. Good morning. My name's Rodney Glover. I am the candidate for governor for Florida. And I wanted to sit down today with all of you guys and talk to you about how political strategy works and give you the current, what you're looking at and how much time it took. So we're going to jump right into it with, you got to understand the story structure. You got your plot, your character, your settings, your conflict in your theme. Now, one of the things that we need to understand is our characters. We're going to take real characters. We're going to take Lewis Powell, who wrote the Powell Memo. The Powell Memo was a direct attack on the American Free Institute. Now that's very important. It's important because this free enterprise system touched everything that we do. It was all of our influential pieces. It was getting into the news. It was getting into the schools. It was getting into the communities. So we've understood that the setting had been set up in 1971. Now, this same individual, Lewis Powell, ended up on the Supreme Court, helping at the top of the echelon of the judiciary branch to pass all of these laws, setting up the sequence and the actions. You take that till today, 2026, where we just saw the gutting of the Civil Rights Act, and you have Justice John Roberts, who is also at the top of the judiciary system, passing laws the same way. Justice Roberts, back in 1982, was a lawyer that also argued to gut the the Civil Rights Act. Back in 1982, that's what he wanted to do. It took him 44 years, combined it to two individuals sitting at the highest seats, roughly 50 years of planning, sequencing, and executing to see their plan through to the end. And the people that we don't know, the character that we don't know, is who's pulling all of the strings. And that's where you cannot get caught up in the stories. Because again, our setting is the United States of America. It's our states. It's our schools. It's our communities. It's our financial industries. It's our economic areas where we use our resources to actually feed ourselves and things of this nature. Now, the conflict, what is the conflict of the story? The conflict or the idea is, how can I put as much misinformation in our society as possible, but reduce the amount of violence? Because remember, American history, as the black race was fighting to get out of all of these laws that were applied to citizens, that were applied to black citizens. As we were fighting, there were lives being lost. That's how we ended up in our Civil War. We were losing lives. So individuals had to start strategically, politically planning on how can we continue to take advantage of our citizens? How can we do this and reduce the amount of violence? That's where we brought in things like redlining. That's where we brought in all of these misinformation areas in the context of our life today. And you have these elected officials who, now we will be given a target. We'll be given somebody to argue about. This is the conflict. The conflict is misinformation and disinformation, because it keeps you not focused on a solution to your problem. And that's where we have to figure this out. We had two individuals make it to the highest seats to be able to pass some of the most divisive and critically disenfranchising laws to all American citizens. Now you have neighbors, you have regular American citizens that make up, think about our setting, that make up the United States, that make up our schools, that make up our communities, that make up our finances, arguing about the misinformation that is pushed because Lewis Powell wrote in a memo back in 1971 that they needed to take control of all of this free enterprise system and make sure that they had these influences to do this. Now you take that into consideration and you look at how we have what they consider, we have 6 conservative justices that make up the Supreme Court and 3 liberal. The Biden administration, the Democratic Party, because we know that the conservatives are considered the Republican Party. The Biden administration, the Democratic Party, they discuss whether or not they should put more liberal judges on the Supreme Court, and they backed out. Now, this is why we say that Republicans and Democrats are part of the same bird, 2 wings on the same bird, because they had the opportunity to put in a balancing portion to ensure that, hey, because we know that these conservative judges may be Republican leaning, and we got to throw this in because this is real important, because we also know that the ethical guidelines that the Supreme Court put in for themselves does not allow anyone to make sure that they are upholding that. They are able to police themselves. The Biden administration, the Democratic administration decided not to do that, not to add more what we would consider liberal judges to balance out the Supreme Court. Was this done on purpose? I'm going to say absolutely, because look at where we are today. Democrats are now saying that the only way for us to get better is if you vote Democrat. Now, you mean to tell me that all of these people that you keep electing into office, all of these individuals that you continue to elect into office did not consider, did not plan out, did not plot out a sequence in action that keeps its citizens going back and forward between Republican and Democrat, and never setting on, hey, we need to add ourselves into the plot. We know we're characters, but American citizens need to be in the plot. Right now, American citizens, as far as characters are concerned, are broken up into 3 groups: Republicans, Democrats, everyone else, but not unified American citizens. And that's where our issue lies, and that's where our issue continues to lie. We are not paying attention that right now the Democrats have written themselves into the story, more than likely purposely planning this out to simply say that, hey, we need to shift this power, but not give it to the citizens. We need to show the citizens that the only way they can move forward, no matter what direction, is if they come under one of our regimes. That's where we are today, citizens. This is why I'm running for governor for Florida, to give citizens the top in our state structure, and hopefully it extends to our federal structure, to give citizens as an overwhelming population the final say-so. Because right now we're inside of a story with the shadow group that we don't know, and we get caught up in trying to find out who these shadow people are, when we needed to figure out, hey, we need to be part of the plot. We need to figure out how we can throw in sequences and actions that are going to change this living story into a narrative that works for the American citizen, not for the Republican, not for the Democrat, not for the independent or whatever parties out here, for the American citizen. There is not a part of our U.S. Constitution that does not have ambiguity. This means it can be seen from multiple sides. When it comes to the American citizen, we have to fight to prove that the Constitution applies to the American citizen when it needs to apply. When we can see that the disenfranchisement of our communities, when we can see that the different disenfranchisement of these corporations being able to take advantage of us at every level is happening. This is something that every citizen needs to understand. We are part of a living story. Your lives are being manipulated, because if you go read the 8-page Powell memorandum, he's spelling out what it takes to influence the United States of America's citizens. And he's spelling how corporations, because he was a corporate lawyer before he got on the Supreme Court, he was spelling out in the Powell memorandum how they needed to invest, why they needed to invest, and what could come from that investment. When I say that, hey, I'm running for the highest seat, it's because you can see how the highest seats have so much influence based on those seats, how they have so much influence that it is necessary to get in those seats if you want to make some real changes. And that's what we're looking to do, make some real changes. But we have to set the structure. It took them combined over 50 years to get this done. It took them combined, but they stood the test of time based on their ideals and they got it done. And they did not consider, or they did consider how we would deal with it. They didn't care how we felt about it. So they removed the idea of feelings because the effects of what they have done, it doesn't affect them in an adverse manner. The them in the day that I am referring to are the controlling individuals. Every millionaire and billionaire, I'm not going to assume has this plan in mind. I'm just not going to assume that because this is the misinformation and disinformation that gets put out. The idea behind this was to keep its citizens, to keep us, the U.S. citizens, in a state of confusion and chaos, but not violent. We now have a mechanism, technology, which allows us to argue in a non-violent manner. Prior to this mechanism, this technology being put in place, citizens would go out and protest, and it would always end in violence. There were citizens, there were groups that would go out, and the way they would say they needed something was to be violent. So they put a mechanism in to curb that, to curb just the violence piece. So we have to, and I'm okay with this not having to be violent approach. But what we have to understand is it is time to put in constitutional mechanisms that are for citizens and start finding out who is going to argue that citizens should not have more power over their elected officials. We need to expose some of the shadow characters so we can start to see the strategies and where we're headed. If everybody knows that our gas is going up, insurance is going up, wages are not meeting these things, what's the end goal to this? Is it poverty for all American citizens while we're still arguing about race divide? Is it poverty for all American citizens so that you are so beholden to some group of people that you don't even have the energy to get out there and physically fight? Is that the overall goal? We do not know. That's why we don't get caught up in that. What we understand right now is that our wages do not meet this current inflation rate. We know that to be a fact. What we know to be a fact right now is there is a group of people that it is not affecting financially that are making these decisions. We know right now that we have elected officials that are doing insider trading and getting filthy rich, removing themselves from the same harm that they're inflicting on other American citizens. And this is all happening because this story is a living testament. It is walking and talking. And it is up to citizens to finally put ourselves in a position to decide to say, hey, we need to stop letting these individuals continue only their part of the story. We need to start adding our own to this story. I hope that you can understand the time it takes, the strategic planning it takes to put these things together. And how individuals are willing to take their time to make stuff like this happen. Because they took their time, they were methodical, and they planned it. And the writing is there, the reading is there, the information is available. And now you have to decide, especially if you're in these states in general. These states, you need to decide if the candidate that you are voting for is campaigning to give you power over them. If your candidate is not campaigning to give you power over them, we are still a part of someone else's plot. And we are still trying to figure out the theme. But we understand the conflict will be misinformation, disinformation that we're hoping will continue to be nonviolent. We don't mean zero violence because they have accepted a certain amount of violence, but it is drastically reduced from what we saw when we had American citizens, and we're going to hit us all, when we had our men, when we had men and women of non-white descent and women of white descent that were fighting throughout American history to be a part of this Constitution. We know we have problems, but we need to start strategically putting in solutions that are going to lead, that are going to ultimately lead to getting control of the story. That's why I'm running for governor for Florida, to get the building blocks put in place that will give you that. If these people were willing to give 50 years of their life to see the fruition of their work, I doggone sure better be standing here giving you the little 20 minutes of a story to explain to you how this works and what we can do to fix it. I don't know if all of you will even make it to the end to figure out if this works for you, but I hope that you do. I really do, because where we are today, we're going to need individuals that want to understand that this is not going to be a quick fix scenario. We're going to need to put in the structure that is going to lead ultimately to you being able, through the democratic process, through democracy, to address your concerns and your needs and get a hold of the resources that you're still asking Republicans and Democrats for. It doesn't matter which party passes policies that work for you, as long as both parties understand that you're beholden to one or the other and not to the United States of America as an American citizen. And this is why I have been advocating for individuals to start registering non-party affiliated and start affiliating yourselves with U.S. citizens, because this is an American citizen problem. Because we have heard one of the things that they continue to push that creates this overwhelming chaos. Now the argument isn't for, hey, how are white people still saying, how are black people still saying that white people have all this privilege and white people are struggling too? That's the misinformation and disinformation chaos that I'm referencing. Because now you can't pick a target. So you have to fight all of these unnecessary battles, because I sent you in so many directions that you can't understand or you can't see a solution, because I have you fighting 100 different directions. And there may be one or two of you that manage to squeak through, but it won't be enough, because back in 1971, Lewis Powell figured out that, hey, if we get ourselves into the American free enterprise, we can influence all of these people however we want to, and we're going to have the money to do so. And with that money comes control, because it always had. So again, if you're looking for good candidates, you better find the candidates that are out here advocating to give you power over them. If they are not advocating to give you power over them, then they are a part of the sequence and actions of the plot of this current story. Because they're all saying, only through me can you fix this. And that is something I will not believe. I believe in unity, and if we work together, we can do this as American citizens. Consider this. Consider this. Because right now, every one of us is a part of this story. Have a great day.